Name times for you. Stashy Blocks. Let's play a little more, Ebihime. This is Winter's Daydream. I'm a little bit bored with this game. I was excited by the concept of how weird it is that it's about the grandmother becoming young again, but actually it's about as cute as I should have imagined it would be from the trailer. I think occasionally there's jokes where people assume that the grandmother is his girlfriend. I think that's like the highlight of it for me. That's like the fun part. But for the most part, it's just like very cute, very sweet, very nice. I guess I wouldn't really have it any other way. So it's not really a complaint, but I kind of thought it was going to be like weirder and creepier than it is. But it's actually just very nice, which I should have expected. But I like this game a lot. It's so charming, so cute. Like it's kind of a guilty pleasure just how sickeningly sweet and adorable this game is. But I like it. Given this town is so small, there isn't a single shop in the limited high street devoted entirely to kimonos. A couple of clothes shops have small sections devoted to kimonos and yukatas, but they mostly carry simple pieces that go for less than 8,000 yen. The majority of these kimonos are comprised of solid colors, either black or red or blue, and they're inevitably decorated with flowers or butterflies. The obis aren't much better, similarly drab and dreary, embellished with trite patterns one can find almost anywhere. My grandmother isn't particularly impressed with these kimonos, and neither am I, though I can't pretend I know much about them. Whoa, there's some more lines of dialogue, but they're down in the bottom of the light blue text, and they're really hard to read. Maybe I can try to get closer to the screen and read it. We looked through the rails of all the secondhand shops in this town for a lucky find or two, but nothing, maybe? Though there are several kimonos on the the rails of these shops, they're too plain to hold my grandmother's attention. No, 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 she mumbles to herself, shaking her head as she rummages through the rails. These are nothing like the kimonos I wore when I was young. My grandmother sighs as she lets go of the sleeve of the pale peach kimono embroidered with cherry blossoms. Oh dear, I don't mean to sound like an old nag, she says, and then she laughs, but our search remains fruitless despite her good humor. When my grandmother does find the kimono she likes, she discovers that its sleeves is frayed, and it smells faintly of cigarettes. It must have belonged to a smoker, she concludes sadly. Such a pity, too. It really is a pretty thing, but Yukinari wouldn't want to see me in a kimono that smells of smoke. But I thought he used to smoke himself. He gave it up a few years ago after it made him chesty in the winter. It wasn't for him. It wasn't easy for him. He smoked most of his life, but he said his health was more important. He didn't want to get sick, you see. Not while we were still together. He didn't want to leave me on my own. He sounds like he was a very noble man. He was, incredibly so. He gave his all for my sake. So I must do the same for him. And with that, the kimono is discounted from the running. We look all around the town for over 3 hours, leaving no store unturned and no shop overlooked. My grandmother must have pored over every single kimono on display within a 10-mile radius, but each and every last one makes her shake her head. There's always something wrong. With aching limbs and tired feet, my grandmother and I retreat to the iced-over fountain in the central plaza. I glance around my surroundings, my fingers jammed deep into my pockets. It's much too cold to let them roam in the wind. The deciduous trees around the plaza were dusted with snow earlier this morning, but some of the powdery snow has melted during our hunt. Let's look up the word deciduous. Knowing this game, they're probably using it correctly, but I want to catch this game in a mistake. You remember, I think I caught it in some mistakes early on. Like there was a word that was like, idyllic, and it was like, I thought it was misspelled, but I bet it was spelled correct, and it was just like, it's just that they're using these like complicated words that I don't know. So I bet that idyllic word was also correct. Deciduous. Shedding its leaves annually. That's a $5 word we just learned right there. Deciduous. Shedding its leaves annually. The anemic sun that hangs in the gray steely sky shimmers weakly. Anemic means weak, right? Yeah, the sun is weak in the cold. Though it's a cold day and there's a lot of clouds, the sun is still doing its best to keep shining. I, on the other hand, have already started to wilt. Maybe we left it too late. All the good kimonos might have already been bought already. Oh, don't be so downhearted, you. You're underestimating my womanly wiles. I give her a sidelong look. What do you mean? We haven't exhausted all of our options yet. But we've been in every single clothes store there is. We might have been in every single clothes store, but there's still one place we haven't looked. Where? My grandmother taps her nose with her index fingers. That's for me to know, dear, and you to find out. Uh-oh. Oh, you. Don't you think it looks lovely? Well, it is quite cute, I guess. But this one is very nice, too. And this. My grandmother's so excited I can practically see the heart swirling around her head. The last shop my grandmother wanted to visit isn't devoted to clothes, secondhand or otherwise, which is located down a rabbit warren of twisting, turning streets. Is an antique shop. Oh, Tamayura, is the name of the shop, which is located down a rabbit warren of twisting, turning streets. It is an antique shop, Tamayura. This antique shop mostly carries itself from the latter half of the Edo period. Lacquered plates, ukiyo-e prints, and Ichimatsu dolls. It does, however, have a small section near the back of the shop devoted to antique kimonos and obis. There are even geta shoes, parasols, and shawls in numerous colors. The selection of items is fairly small and select, but this doesn't dampen my grandmother's enthusiasm. Oh, they're also beautiful. Trophy urn, antique shop. They're not quite like the ones I wore when I was young, but they're much nicer than the cheap mass-produced kimonos at those other shops. Do any of these kimonos look like the ones you wore when you first met Grandpa? I'll never find an exact replica, of course, but maybe it's better that way. It's impossible to replicate the past. And I used to think it was impossible for people to lose 60 years overnight, but look at you now. My grandmother giggles, holding the cream sleeve of her sweater against her mouth. Well, I suppose so. You make an excellent point. I wonder how much these cost. I examine the kimono that's the closest to me on the rail. It's a soft orange color embroidered with an intricate image of a wheat field. And look at the price it demands. 120,000 yen. I drop the fabric hastily and take a step back. Yep, that's the right reaction. These kimonos are so expensive, I feel like I'm losing money just looking at them. The worst thing is the soft orange kimono I handled is one of the cheaper ones, and it's still more than 10 times the price of the kimonos we examined in the other stores. Are you sure we can afford this, Grandma? They're pretty expensive. Don't worry about me, dear. I have savings. But I'm not a fool, you. Though I might be old, I did imagine a suitable kimono would fetch quite a hefty price. That's inflation for you. Besides, Yukinori always said I was a woman with expensive tastes. I know, but that's my inheritance, bitch. I mean, it's 100,000, 20,000 yen for something you're going to wear once? Oh my, you sound just like my mother, you. I'm just trying to be sensible about my inheritance. Whoa. I know, dear. That's one of your good qualities. It's very sweet. That's what she says, but her eyes are glinting. I think she's teasing me. My grandmother always liked teasing people. She used to feed me a lot of silly stories when I was a kid, just to see how I would react. Once she told me that Lizette was sentient, and she moved around in the night when nobody was looking. I found Lizette unsettling, though, with her unblinking eyes and her pouty lips, but that only made it worse. I was genuinely frightened of that doll when I was younger. Not frightened enough that it deterred me tipping her upside down to examine her drawers, though. Yep. If you want my opinion, I still think you should let your old grandma have a bit of fun every once in a while. I've looked I've always loved clothes shopping. But you've been wearing the same clothes for years. And that's precisely why I want to look nice now. My grandmother's fingers trail across the rack of kimonos almost reverently. If I'm going to visit Yukinari again, I want to look my very best. I want to buy something pretty enough to do my new body justice, even if it only lasts for one night. Alright, fine, but you're sounding disturbingly like Otoko. Your sister's a very pretty girl. I'll take it as a compliment. She might be pretty, but she's rotten on the inside. I always thought that Otoko, with her fiery nature and her short temper, didn't really take after anybody in the family. She's not like Dad, who's laid back, or Mom, who fusses and fidgets and bends over backwards to please people. I might have been wrong, though. Otoko's not very much like our mother or father, but she has more than a couple of similarities with our grandmother. They both have a penchant for expensive clothes. Speaking of which, Otoko wanted me to buy her a gift, didn't she? I don't think I'll find any frilly bikinis nestled among the shelves of Tamayura, but I might be able to find something she'll like. I'm going to look around. Tell me when you're finished. Of course, I might be here for a while, though. I've been taken back into my girlhood. Did you go shopping a lot? Oh yes, especially with my mother. She enabled me, really. She was forever fussing about money, and she warned me against being arrogant, but she loved dressing me up. Take your time, then. I don't mind. I will, and thank you for understanding, dear. I appreciate it. I do my best. I wander off, glancing around this peculiar shop with newly kindled interest. A present for Otoko, What would she like? The shop really is filling with interesting wares. The shelves are positively crammed full of stuff, shimmering mysteriously beyond the dim lights. I think that they dim the lights in antique shops on purpose, so the artificial brightness doesn't harm any of the antique pieces, particularly the paintings. These ukiyo pictures are rather interesting, of women in kimonos playing in the koto, or standing in tea gardens with their raised parasols shielding them from the sun. I find them charming in a dated kind of way, but I very much doubt they would be to Otoko's tastes. I keep searching, making a mental inventory of all the curios I find inside my head. There are a few fans decorated with soft pastel images of butterflies and gardens, and an enamel brooch resting in the blue jewelry box. A 15-piece set of kimikoki dolls with kimonos fashioned out of cloth and black hair cut into neat bobs. I try not to look at the price tags attached to these items. Something about all those zeros is rather frightening. While I peruse, I can't stop myself from glancing over at the shopkeeper. Uh-oh. She's a surprisingly young woman in her mid-20s or so. She looks a little out of place in a store like this. Especially with her carefree manicured fingernails and glossy magazine in her hands. Is that the first thing you notice about her? I try to covertly, it's supposed to be covertly, it's slight error there I caught. I try to covertly read the cover of her magazine. The name looks familiar, though I know I've never read it. It's one of those, the same magazines Otoko buys. If it is, I wouldn't be surprised. This woman looks just as fashion conscious as my caustic little sister. I just hope she'll be more agreeable. Hey. The shopkeeper lifts her head, setting the magazine to one side. Why are you staring at me? I blush and try to avert my eyes, but it's already too late. The girl behind the counter knows I've been staring. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The girl, woman I should say, purses her lips. She doesn't look convinced by my weak reassurances. You know, it's pretty rude to stare at other women when you're out with your girlfriend. Girlfriend? The one looking at the kimonos. She is your girlfriend, right? Fortunately, my grandmother is so enamored with the small selection of kimonos, she doesn't seem to have heard our conversation. If she had, I know I'd never hear the end of it. She might be a girl, but she's not really my friend. We're family. Oh, a sister? I already have a sister, and she's enough of a handful as it is. I don't want any siblings, fictional or otherwise. No, she's my cousin. She doesn't live around here. I see. You look so close, I just assumed. Maybe I shouldn't have. It gets so dull around here sometimes. I invent drama to keep myself entertained. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable. It's alright. She doesn't need to apologize. I was the one who started it by staring at her. Your cousin has strange taste, though. Those kimonos are so old-fashioned. And they're expensive. Totally. If she wanted to wear a kimono, I'd buy a new one. I wouldn't feel right wearing something so old. I mean, who knows who wore those in the past? She shudders. Thinking about it gives me the creeps. We already looked around the other stores, but she didn't like anything they had to offer. She prefers antiques. Huh. Weird. I guess. This whole situation is pretty weird. The shopkeeper isn't wrong. Not that she's privy to all the details. So why were you staring at me? Did you want to ask me something about those kimonos? I open my mouth ready to speak, but she holds up a hand before I can say anything. Stop. Let me just tell you, before you waste your breath, that I can't give you any discounts. No matter how expensive those kimonos are, my boss would kill me. I'm going to end the video here, but keep going, so see y'all next time.